A truth for a lie, when secrets decide freedom. The untold story of Cha Eun-woo and Moon Jae-young. No courtroom, no jury, no judge. Just a quiet room. Thick velvet curtains drawn tight against the Seoul skyline. The chandelier above glowed faintly, more shadow than light, casting long lines across the polished mahogany desk. At that desk sat a man whose name carried weight in the country's corridors of power. A minister, a strategist, a kingmaker whose hands never touched dirt, yet who always left others covered in it. And across from him sat Moon Jae-young, her fingers curled into fists on her lap, though she tried to keep her expression calm. The man's voice rolled over her like smoke. Clear Cha Eun-woo's name publicly, Miss Moon. Do it with conviction. Become his salvation. In return, I'll bury a truth about you, one the world can never know. It was the kind of offer that smelled like poison but glittered like gold. Jae-young's silence was her only weapon, but silence had never felt so heavy. By the time word leaked of this clandestine meeting, Cha Eun-woo had already spent months entangled in a trial that shredded his reputation. The once untouchable star was painted in headlines as a criminal mastermind, a fallen idol. The public didn't just doubt him, they hungered for his downfall. But Jae-young never wavered. From the first arraignment to the endless nights poring over case files, she believed, not blindly, not foolishly, but with the certainty of someone who had seen too much in his eyes to ever mistake him for a monster. And that was precisely why the official came to her. His terms were simple on the surface. Take the stage, speak to the cameras, tell the world Eun-woo was innocent. Not just innocent, framed. He wanted her to become the lightning rod, the shield, the voice of defiance that would sway public opinion. But nothing in politics comes free. The price was her own silence, about something buried in her past, something darker than any courtroom testimony. When pressed, Jae-young never revealed the details. Not to reporters, not even to Eun-woo himself. But those close to her said they noticed a shift in her demeanor after that night. Her eyes, once sharp with determination, carried a flicker of fear, as if she were being forced to choose between two truths, his freedom or her own. Speculation erupted almost immediately. What could a woman like Jae-young, respected, admired, and famously careful, possibly have to hide that a high-ranking official could use as leverage? Some whisper of family ties to the original case that ensnared Eun-woo. Others suggested an old scandal buried in her university years, a misstep that could be twisted into something damning. But there was another theory, one that connected too perfectly with the larger conspiracy that had been unraveling since the confession tape first surfaced. Years before, a similar case had disappeared from records, a man wrongfully accused, evidence fabricated, witnesses silenced. The fingerprints of the same officials lingered across both cases, but no one dared connect the dots publicly. What if Jae-young had found something in those files? Something that tied the official himself to Eun-woo's framing? And what if the price of Eun-woo's freedom was her silence about it? For Eun-woo, the weight of prison was nothing compared to the sight of Jae-young walking into visiting hours with dark circles under her eyes and forced steadiness in her smile. "Why do you keep doing this?" he asked one night, his voice raw, hands pressed to the cold divider glass. "You're carrying me on your back, and it's killing you." Her answer was simple. "Because I can't let them win." But she never told him about the official's visit, never told him that she was the one now standing at a crossroads with no safe path forward. Every time she opened her mouth to reassure him, to tell him they'd find a way, she tasted the bitterness of the lie. Because the deal haunted her. If she took it, he would walk free. But her own name, her own truth, would be chained forever in shadows. If she refused, the man she loved might never breathe fresh air again. And so Eun-woo remained unaware, while Jae-young bore the impossible choice alone. The day came when Jae-young stood before a wall of microphones, cameras flashing, every eye trained on her. The press had branded her the last loyalist, the only one who hadn't abandoned the disgraced star. Her voice shook at first, but she steadied it with sheer willpower. "Cha Eun-woo is not guilty," she declared. The evidence against him was planted. The witnesses were coerced. This case is not about justice. It's about power. The crowd erupted. half jeering, half roaring with support. Somewhere in the city, the official watched from his office, a faint smile tugging at his lips. She had kept her end of the bargain. But the question lingered like smoke. What truth had she buried by this moment? The aftermath was a storm. Public opinion shifted wildly. Hashtags calling for Eun-woo's freedom trended worldwide, while detractors painted Ji-ae Young as delusional or compromised. Behind the scenes, Eun-woo's legal team found doors suddenly opening, files suddenly accessible, as if unseen hands were guiding the case toward collapse. And yet, for Ji-ae Young, the victory fell hollow. She had secured his path to freedom. Yes, but at what cost? Each time Eun-woo thanked her, each time he whispered, "I don't deserve you," the lie cut deeper, because she had given up a truth so dangerous, so shattering, that even love might not survive it if it ever surfaced. Months later, when Eun-woo finally walked free, the cameras focused on his tearful reunion with Ji-ae Young. The nation saw relief, devotion, triumph. What they didn't see was the way her hand trembled in his, or the way she avoided his eyes when he whispered, "You saved me." How? Her answer was a smile, a practiced, gentle curve of her lips. Because some lies aren't spoken to deceive. Some are spoken to protect. And in the end, Ji-ae Young had given up the only thing more dangerous than Eun-woo's imprisonment, the truth about herself. To this day, no one knows exactly what secret the official held over Ji-ae Young. Some say it was her family's involvement in a decades-old cover-up. Others claim she uncovered files tying the minister to a string of wrongful convictions. But one fact remains undeniable. Without her sacrifice, Eun-woo would likely still be behind bars. The price of that freedom? A truth exchanged for a lie. And as long as both of them walk in the shadow of that bargain, their love story remains unwritten, unfinished, balanced on a fragile line between revelation and ruin. The memory of that room haunted Moon, Ji-ae Young, more than she cared to admit. She could still feel the weight of the velvet curtains pressing in, suffocating, as if the world itself wanted her to agree to the official's terms. Every detail clung to her. The clink of his expensive pen against a glass table, the faint smell of tobacco in the air, the way his eyes never blinked as he laid out the choice that could shatter her future. Save him, he had said softly, almost kindly, or bury him. And yet, Ji-ae Young couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't the only one being watched, that even here, in the secret chamber, unseen eyes and ears recorded every word. That night, she returned home to find Eun-woo's letters stacked neatly on her desk. He had written to her from prison almost every day, his handwriting firm but tinged with desperation. One line stood out among the others. "Promise me you'll never destroy yourself just to save me." She read it over and over, her breath catching. If only he knew the decision she had already made. If only he knew that her silence about her own secret was the very act destroying her piece by piece. Ji-ae Young pressed the page to her chest, tears pricking her eyes. Outside, Seoul glowed with neon life, indifferent to her war. The next morning, as she stepped out of her apartment, a figure brushed past her. Just another pedestrian, just another face in the city, except for a folded scrap of paper that slipped into her hand. Her pulse spiked as she unfolded it. Don't take the deal. He doesn't keep promises. No signature, no name. Just 7 words that burned through her resolve. For the first time since that meeting, Ji-ae Young considered a possibility that the official wasn't offering salvation at all, but another trap. The trial resumed days later. Eun-woo sat at the defendant's table, his suit neatly pressed, his posture rigid. But his eyes, those betrayed him. They searched the gallery until they found her, and she, sitting in the second row, could barely hold his gaze. Because while everyone else in that courtroom debated evidence, argued testimony, dissected motives, she alone held knowledge of a bargain that could turn the trial upside down in an instant. When the prosecutor introduced yet another witness with suspiciously precise memory, Ji-ae Young clenched her fist so tightly her nails drew blood. This was the corruption the official wanted her to silence. This was the machinery she was being asked to grease with her own truth. Later that night, Eun-woo's lawyer arranged a private meeting. The guard's footsteps faded down the hall as Ji-ae Young stepped into the cold room where he waited. Why are you doing this? Eun-woo demanded the moment their eyes met. His voice cracked, not with anger but with helplessness. You're fighting everyone. The press, the prosecutors, the system itself. And you look like you're breaking. Jae-young swallowed, forcing steadiness into her voice. I won't let them destroy you. He leaned closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. And what about you? Who saves you? The words pierced her like a blade. She almost confessed then about the official, the deal, the secret she was bearing to keep him afloat. But the thought of his face, if he knew, the disappointment, the horror, stopped her cold. Instead, she reached for his hand across the table. Don't worry about me. Just survive this. It was the first time she had lied directly to him, and it shattered her more than she expected. Days later, she was summoned again. Same velvet curtains, same suffocating air. The official leaned back in his chair, studying her with predator's patience. You hesitate, he murmured. A dangerous trait. I'm not a pawn. Jae-young shot back, surprising even herself. Her voice trembled, but her resolve did not. His chuckle was low, humorless. On the contrary, Miss Moon, you're the queen on this board, the one who can save your night. But queens fall too when they're careless. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside, a single photograph stared back at her. Something from her past, something she had worked her whole life to outrun. Her chest tightened. The official's voice was silk and steel. Choose wisely. Truth or survival. His freedom or your ruin. Back in her apartment, Jae-young tore at the photograph with trembling hands, ripping it to shreds. But no matter how many times she destroyed it, the image reappeared in her mind. She slammed her fist against the desk, her tears hot, unstoppable. Why me? She whispered to the empty room. Why do I have to be the one to bleed for him? But even as the question left her lips, she knew the answer. Because love had never been fair. Because truth had never been safe. Because survival sometimes demanded sacrifice. And because Cha Eun-woo's life was worth more to her than her own. The next day, she stood before the cameras. The microphones caught her every breath. The lights burned hot on her skin. Cha Eun-woo, she declared, voice steady despite the storm inside, is innocent. This case is a fabrication, a performance meant to protect those in power. But I will not stay silent. Not anymore. The crowd erupted. Supporters cheered. Detractors jeered. Reporters fired off questions like bullets. And somewhere in the shadows of Seoul, the official watched, his smile sharp as a blade. Jae-young had played her part, but she knew the cost of that performance would follow her forever. Closing scene, love entangled in lies. That night, Eun-woo wrote her one last letter from his cell. They can take my freedom, my reputation, my name. But if they take you too, then they've won. Please don't let them win. She read it in silence, her tears soaking the ink, for she had already given